let's get back into this with the uncommons. We got Poison the Cup, which is just, a standard kill spell, a little bit of a bonus there with the foretold thing, but easily replaceable with something like Unholy Hunger. There's always like one or two cheap or mid-grade kill spells in standard, so that's an easy replacement. All right, what else we got here? Poet's Quill. Poet's Quill is good. When its support enters the board, learn, and while on the board, your first creature gets +2/+2 and gains lifelink. This can be replaced with Mask of Bristlebrand if you don't have that yet. It's a rare, but it's common for a rare, so I wouldn't be surprised if you have this one too, if you played this game long enough. And of course, Wizard class in blue. Yeah. Thankfully, there's no replacement for this in standard. There might be something that comes along, but I think this is going to be a legacy staple for, I don't know, who knows how long the rest of the game's life. But yeah, it's overpowered. It's the bane of many a player's existence and should not be as good as it is, but there you go. The closest thing I could even think of is like Arcane Bombardment, but that's just a one time per turn effect that it gives you. So it's not going to be the bomb that Wizard class is, but there is a pretty good loop that you can make with Tamio that's about as powerful as a Wizard class could be if it gets it all set up. But I think I will probably highlight that in a later video. But it involves Rumor Gatherer, Hallowed Haunting, and the Shaman of what's it? Forgotten Lore or something, whatever. It's the Masterpiece Green from Streets of New Capenna. But yeah. So Sayonara Wizard class. You will be missed by some, and good riddance by most. Mentor's Guidance, draw 2 cards. Those cards gain 4 mana. When you cast this card, I almost never think of that second part. I don't even know if it's working correctly. But I just really pay attention to draw 2 cards and gaining 4 mana. And Broker's Charm, I would say, is the best replacement for that, because Broker's Charm is actually better because it does so many other things for you, and those 2 cards gain 6 mana instead. Salundi Vision. It's a card that maybe not a lot of people use, but it's still a pretty good little utility card. Pick one of the first 4 spells from your library, fetch that card. If that card is a blue spell, your wizard creatures get +2/+2 until end of turn. And then, of course, they'll land farming, create a Salundia Isle token, which I believe converts 2 gems to blue. If you don't use Discover the Impossible, it's not a great card, but it has similar utility as Salundi Vision, so you might look into that if you're looking to replace this card, if it's something you use regularly. Druid class. Most of the classes are good. I like Druid class because it's a green converter with resilience, so it doesn't get destroyed after flooding the board with green gems all the time. So that's why I like this card. And there's not really anything to replace it. The classes are pretty unique in that way. But if you go in on the PMA lands, you'll find a lot of really good stuff in there. And so Druid class will probably not be a staple for that. But also you could use Druid class in conjunction with all the PMA lands in Legacy for those kinds of battles that you might want to get into. Containment Breach. Destroy an opposing non-land support. Then if the last card in your opponent's graveyard has base cost 8 or less, create 2 pest tokens. So this is just basically a support destruction spell. And Broker's Charm will do that for you and other great things. So Containment Breach is a cool card, but you'll still be able to, I think, use it in Legacy with, or in Standard with Kazmina's second ability, but we'll see how that goes. And Broker's Charm is a superior card in just about every way, so go get that Broker's Charm. Cleric class, another good class card. This one is the life gain one, so one of Ajani's friends here. Gets really annoying when you put a bunch of these on the board for yourself, but yeah, cool card. As far as like gaining life continuously, if you don't have Cigar to Splendor or you don't use it, I highly recommend that card. I feel like it's one of the most underrated cards in Standard right now. It's awesome. Cigar to Splendor. At the beginning of your turn, your card's level becomes X. X is equal to the sum of your creature's power and toughness and the amount of white gems on the board. When you make your first smash during your turn, if your life total is greater than this card's level, draw a card, it gains half its mana. Otherwise, gain 3 life. So most of the time, your level is going to be higher than that, unless you're like really low on life, or you have no creatures and you're low on life. Then you gain 3 life. And when you cast a white card, gain 3 life. So cast a lot of white cards, you'll basically be doing what Cleric class does, and you get that bonus of drawing a card and gaining half its mana. So Cigar to Splendor is an awesome card, and I think just because it's just one of those wall of text cards, people don't pay enough attention to it. But yeah, if you're using Cleric class, replace it with Cigar to Splendor if you have it. Then Journey to Oblivion, that's an easily replaceable one with Circle of Confinement. It's just basically targeted exile in a support. And Circle of Confinement's actually better because you don't really get a big downside when you destroy this support. Rune of Sustenance. What I love about this card is it just gives you permanent lifelink. This was kind of the replacement for what do you call it? This was a replacement for Staggering Insight when that rotated out of Standard. So hopefully we get another permanent lifelink spell aura in the next set here. But in the meantime, Angel Fire Ignition is an awesome card. It gives you a lot of cool things, including lifelink, but it's only for a turn, so not quite the same. Secret Rendezvous. Each player draws 3 cards. Cards you've drawn this way gain 4 mana. Again, Broker's Charm. Good replacement for this. It doesn't have the downside of your opponent drawing 3 cards either. Cosmos Elixir. Beginning of your turn, if you have full life, draw a card. It gains half its mana. If you don't have full life, you gain 3 life. So again, Cigar to Splendor, great upgrade for Cosmos Elixir. But the nice thing about Cosmos Elixir is that it's colorless, so you can put it in any card or any deck. Whereas Cigar to Splendor is only a white card. And then the uncommon lands with land forming are some of the best lands created for the game because they do double duty with the land forming. So 2 gems to white, and then this one, for example, would be land forming, create a Grim Climb pathway token that converts 2 gems to black. So just really solid. They're uncommon, and we lose a lot of loyalty gem converters too, which kind of sucks. I use them sometimes. I don't use them all the time, but I will miss just the variety of different loyalty gem converters that we don't get anymore. Yeah, some more of these. Got Crawling Bear, it's another loyalty gem converter. The Strixhaven loyalty converter, Biblioplex, Treasure Vault in AFR, Access Tunnel, Wow, there's a lot of loyalty gem conversions in Strixhaven. All right, our multicolor ones. We got what do you call it here? Cleric of Life's Bond. So Cleric of Life's Bond is one of those where your creature gets buffed every time you gain life. There's a vampire in I think Streets in New Capenna that has a similar thing, but that one you gain every time you gain or lose life on I think your turn, you gain you get to buff this creature. So there's a replacement for that one. Oh, it's called Vampire Scrivener. Missed that. Herald King of Skemfar. This was already kind of an upgrade on what do you call it? Sylvan Messenger, that uncommon elf from Origins. But the cool thing about this one is it fetches a Vanguard card also if you have them in your library. So there's a infinite loop with Shaman and Herald if they're the only two cards or only two creatures in your deck. So, or I guess only elves, only two. If this is the only elf in your deck and you have Shaman, then you'll just keep fetching this card and giving it full mana endlessly. So that's a loop that will be stopped in standard at the very least. Trelasara, one of the best uncommon creatures in standard right now. When you gain life, this creature gets +1. Pick one of the top two cards from your library. That's the main thing about it. But you can get this guy or gal, can get him pretty buffed up. So, but the main thing is being able to fetch from the top of your library whatever you want. So there's a lot of easy ways to gain life. So this card really helped to fill your hand with exactly what you needed. There are some cards that will do that for us. Tigum, a masterpiece from SNC. Every time you draw a card, you basically get to fetch one of the top 4 cards from your library and destroy the others. There's no mana gain though, but that's the closest thing I think to Trelasar that we'll have. Zimone, Quandrix Prodigy. The first land support card in your hand gains full mana if you can't convert 3 gems to your Planeswalker's color. Then when you activate a loyalty ability, draw a card. If you control support with 8 or more shield, draw 2 cards. What do I have here? So this one, the main thing is getting lands on the board, I think is what most people use Zimone for. There's a few cards right now. Shigeki and Hiveheart Shaman. Those are a couple of rares that will do that job for you now. Fracture. Destroy the opposing non-land support with the highest shield. This can affect Vanguard. So it's Vanguard and support destruction in both white and black, and it's also got flash. So pretty tough to replace, but I guess the closest thing would be Broker's Charm. Again, Broker's Charm. I keep saying Broker's Charm all the time, but it's that good of a card. It replaces so much in standard for us. So it'll be sad to see that one go when standard rotates next. Closing statement. When a creature dies, this card gains 2 mana. It's just kind of nice because it is a 13 mana spell. And destroy an opposing Vanguard support. If you can't destroy the first opposing creature, then your first creature gets +2/+2. So really its main utility is untargeted removal for both Vanguards and creatures. So when it comes to untargeted removal, my go-to right now is Invoke Despair because it can do all that and also draw you cards. So it's an awesome card, and I barely use Closing Statement anymore because of it. But I do like that Closing Statement has flash. Invoke Despair does not. Binding the Old Gods. This is a card that green heavily relies on for removal. Destroy the last opposing creature, destroying not opposing non-land support, and affect Vanguard. So you can remove 3 different types of cards with the first chapter of this saga, and then it also fetches lands for you in the second chapter, and then makes all your creatures in the third chapter able to Death Touch Berserk, which is usually okay, but sometimes can get you into trouble. The closest thing I would say to replace this is the Kamior, which in some ways is better, but I put them about on the same level. But Kamiwar you can put into any deck. So any green that uses Binding of the Old Gods can easily replace it with the Kamiwar. That's it for our uncommons. So let's move on to our. All right, let's start with Vengeful Reaper. This is a nice little utility card I would mostly use in the Foretell node of Doomscar Claimants. But there's a lot of other cards that have Death Touch and Berserker. There's Seraph Viper's Fang, which does that, gives all your creatures that effect. And then there's also Grave Blade Marauder, a rare from Origins. So there is your replacement. We got Hunt for Specimens, which creates 2 pest tokens and learn. So you can not only cast this one, and then you can grab the other pest token creator lesson card. I forget what it's called. But yeah, pests are going out of standard, which some people will be happy with, but other people will lament. Devour Intellect. This was a nice little card if you were playing a heavy discard strategy. I liked it in conjunction with Infinite Obliteration, but Infinite Obliteration would be the replacement for it. Yeah, Wither Crown. At the beginning of your opponent's turn, the base power of the first opposing creature becomes 1 until the end of turn. And at the end of your opponent's turn, if your opponent controls 1 or more creatures, destroy the first opposing creature. If you do, destroy the support. If your opponent doesn't control a creature, they lose 6 life. So this is a card I used a lot when it first came out, but then I replaced it with other cards like Binding the Old Gods and all that. And it's a cool card. I still feel like because it's an enchantment support with untargeted removal, it's worth having or worth considering. But at this point, it's almost out of standard, so you might not use it much at all after that. But it's a good card to bring back with, say, Starfield of Nyx. Contact Other Plane. This can be replaced with Broker's Charm once again, because the best part of this card is if you roll a d20 and you roll a 20, pick 2 of the first 4 cards in your library, draw those cards gain 3 mana. Being able to pick which cards you get to draw is really nice, but it's not that reliable if you have to roll that d20. Depart the Realm. If your opponent has 5 or less cards in their hand, return the last opposing creature to your opponent's hand. I would say that Fading Hope or Endless Detour would be the closest equivalent to being able to replace this card, but this one does have Flash and it is untargeted bounce, so it's a little bit trickier to replace. I think it's a really cool card. I just don't use bounce cards that often, even though Endless Detour bounces things to the top of your library instead, so that's cool. Reclaim the Wastes. Yeah, just convert 7 gems to green. Solid gem conversion spell. One of the more useful ones they've given us in a while. So that sucks that it will go out of standard. Field Trip, another favorite. For only 5 mana, convert 6 gems to green, and you learn. So you can grab like a Fractal Summoning or Environmental Sciences. Card I use heavily. Uh, the closest thing to replace either of those two cards is Animus Awakening. But honestly, Animus Awakening is not as good as this little lowly common. So that sucks. I will miss Field Trip and Reclaim the Waste because there's not a lot of great gem conversion spells in Standard, and I don't think they really want to give us more of those. So we'll see. Maybe they'll give us something nice in the next set. Fortifying Draft. You gain 3 life, then target creature you control gets +X until end of turn. X is the amount of life you gain this turn. So this is a card I usually only put into my decks when I happen to see that I'm just gaining tons of life all the time. If I really want to give myself a huge buff to a creature, I'll try and make room for this card. It doesn't always work. It usually tends to weaken the overall strategy of the deck to put in here. So it's kind of like a win more for me. But when it when you're able to use this effectively, man, does it buff up your creature. So it's a fun card, not a very reliable card. So I wouldn't say there's anything really that replaces it in standard. So it's just one of those unique cards that it's nice to have around to play around with sometimes when you're playing around with certain strategies and deck tinkering. So there you go. Study Break. Very underutilized card. Pretty underrated, I would say. Disable up to the first 2 opposing creatures until the beginning of your next turn, and then learn. But yeah, being able to untargeted disable 2 of your opponent creatures could be just what you need to be able to cast this Sigarda's Imprisonment or a Sleep with the Fishes on them. So, things to replace that with. There's March of Swirling Mist, which I believe also is untargeted disable, but it's also a blue uncommon. So, uh, there's also Suppression Bonds and Hixis, but it's not quite the same. It's not an instant spell. So, oh well. Defend the Campus. Destroy target opposing creature with power 6 or greater. When you cast this card, your creatures get +X. Not the best spell, but it's a common. And in my alt, it definitely helped to carry me through some battles there because it was the only removal spell I had for a Johnny Invigorate Leadership. So it worked well for that. Kaya's Onslaught. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 and double strike. So a spell that instantly gives your creatures double strike is pretty good. I don't know if there's anything that will really replace it. I guess Alchemist Gambit. Um, yeah, I guess that's the closest thing. Alchemist Gambit because it gives your creatures double strike, but you have to jump through a few more hoops. But Alchemist Gambit is awesome in that it gives you extra turns, and yeah, First Day of Class. This is the only red common spell or card I could think of that I will actually miss. Your creatures get +1/+1 and gain haste, then learn. So just being able to give all your creatures haste is pretty nice. It's not something I think about all the time, but sometimes you just really need that card to get the win or get things going. And the closest thing I could think of that will replace it is Flame Shadow Conjuring, that rare support from Origins, and Arlen Pax Hope Vanguard also gives all your creatures haste, but it's a little different because your creatures already have to be on the board at the beginning of your turn. to be able to give them haste. So not quite the same. Intro to, okay, so now we're getting into the colorless cards. So Intro to Annihilation, exile target creature. If you can't exile opposing land support, its controller draws a card. So the thing about Intro to Annihilation, it only works if there are no creatures on the board to exile a support. So that's why it works that way. But it's an expensive removal spell, but it is exile and it is colorless, so you can put into anything. So I saw most people would use this with Koth or like green creatures. That's where I mostly saw it used. So I would replace it with Rite of Oblivion or even the Kami War. And we got our our common lands from Kaldheim, which are all pretty decent. They're just expensive. 12 mana to get a land on the board. Kind of sucks because you usually want something you usually want a cheaper land to get the rest of your things going. You don't want to spend 12 mana getting something that will start to benefit you the next turn. Team Pennant. This is a card I used a lot in my alt account as well. While on the board, your first creature gains +1 and gains Trample and Vigilance. So with a Johnny Invigorate Leadership, if you use his third ability, or even a second a lot of time, you create an impenetrable wall of creature, or one creature really, with Team Pennant. But yeah, kind of an underrated card, to be honest. But you can replace it with Brute Suit in from Neo, which is a equipment vehicle, or however they call them in Neo. It's so annoying how they do pilot. But anyway, that's a tangent. Um, yeah, the closest thing to being able to give your creatures vigilance with a colorless card is Brute Suit. All right, and now finally, the multicolored cards. We got Adult Gold Dragon, which is pretty nice because it gives red lifelink in a creature. White, probably not as crucial to have, but the replacement for this will be a rare Fleetfoot Dancer, which pretty much gives you all that stuff and trample. Rise of Extus. Exile target opposing creature, then exile the first spell card from your opponent's graveyard, then learn. So uh, it's really just about exiling that target opposing creature, which there's a lot of different ways to get rid of a creature for cheaper. So I would say the best replacement for this would be Rite of Oblivion because it also exiles target creature, even though it gives your own creature imminent death. So neither card is great. So probably not going to be one you miss too much, but still, it's something. Thrilling discovery. You gain 4 life, then you may discard 2 cards, and if you do, draw 3 cards. So it's one of those discard draws. Gonna be replaced by Big Score from SNC. Practical Research. Draw 4 cards and discard a spell card at random. If you can't, discard 2 cards at random. So this was one of the best draw cards ever because it's 9 mana and it's bugged in that everything past draw 4 cards is never works. So you just basically get the benefit of drawing 4 cards for 9 mana, which is freaking solid if you ask me. And the best equivalent to this will be the mythic spell Even the Score. Eureka Moment. This is a card I don't use that much anymore, but draw 2 cards and convert 4 gems to your Planeswalker's colors. It easily gets replaced by a card that's much better called Cut Your Losses. Now we got Square Up, which Target creature's base power and toughness become 4/4 until end of turn. So this is one of those cards that if you raise the base power and toughness of a token stat, you could either double, most of the time you're doubling or quadrupling the power of your token stat. So that's awesome. But we have a card that's even better now, which is Serpentine Ambush. I don't think Serpentine Ambush has Flash, though. So that's going to be the main difference between the two. But Serpentine Ambush gives your base power and toughness 5/5 instead. And finally, the last card we will miss from Standard, Mortality Spear. When you gain life if this card is in your hand, it gains 2 mana. Destroy the first opposing non-token creature. Can't destroy an opposing non-token non-land support. So the one of the better things about this card is that it has Flash. So you could use it against creatures with haste that are going to hit the board, get them out of the way before they do any damage to you. So that's awesome in that way. But yeah, this is a card that is a staple for a lot of green decks. But also, I see a decent amount of black decks use it too because of the flash removal and it's untargeted, and you can get rid of a non token, non land support as well. So it will be missed, but there are some decent replacements for the Kami War, Invoke Despair. Neither one is the same, but they have their advantages over Mortality Spear as well. The unfortunate thing about both of those cards is they don't have Flash. But, you know, you take the good, you take the bad. And that's just kind of how it is with replacing your cards out of standard. So I feel like going through this exercise here of creating this video that there's a lot that can be replaced with something maybe not quite as good, but pretty close. And a lot of times you get an upgrade that Broker's Charm will replace a lot of cards and be better. So look for when you're building decks for those cards that do double or triple duty. You really want to maximize those 10 deck slots that you get. All right. Thanks for watching. If you made it all the way through, thanks to you. You are a true fan. If you think I missed anything, let me know. If there's any that you especially will miss, if you concur with any of my picks here, let me know that as well. And I'll look forward to seeing what's on the horizon with Dominaria United. See if we get any more replacements for these cards leaving standard. All right.